Okay. So I want to welcome everybody to Monday Whispers Chat. And Bridging the Gap Wellness is all about creating a holistic life and helping you find balance. And so each week during Monday Whispers Chat, I invite an inspiring woman to be able to share with us their knowledge and their expertise. My name is Rollie Allaire. My spirit name is Gigudo Migunkwe, and which means talking feather woman. And I'm a holistic trauma coach, a spirit flame keeper, and a soul healer. And I work with women who have experienced trauma, helping them regain some balance and get some joy back into their lives. And so I draw extensively on my my background of psychotherapy, and I combine that with holistic approaches using either chakra work or crystal Reiki, theta healing, Akashic record readings, moon medicine, and I use the 4 dimensions of the medicine wheel pretty intently. So today I want to be able to welcome Andrea Lewis, who is a spiritual medium, and Andrea is going to share with us her experience and her knowledge of being able to that it's not too late. It's never too late to be able to and I lost my screen, so I lost my comment. It's never too late. There it is. It's never too late to heal the past. How's that for smooth sailing, Andrea?
I love it. I love it. Completely organic, and it inspires me that it's like, okay, you know what? It doesn't matter. Anything's going to go. So
I already do all the muffling up at the beginning when I'm trying to introduce myself. Most of the time, I can't even remember what it is that I do. So that's even more interesting.
Wow, that's great. So thank you for having me here. It's great to connect with your community. So hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Lewis. I'm a certified spiritual medium. And my path to becoming a certified spiritual medium was completely organic. I'm actually a former government employee of 12 years. I resigned from my position 6 years ago. I was feeling burnt out, unhappy, and unfulfilled. And I then self-published my memoir, and because I wasn't seeing the results that I expected, I doubted my decision, and this eventually led me to studying. I resigned from my position 6 years ago. Oh, there's an echo. Study empowerment coaching, and from there, that evolved into doing ancestral healing in the Akashic records, and becoming a certified spiritual medium was inspired by the death of my father 3 years ago. I had been estranged from him for about 8 years. And when I learned of his passing, it brought up intense guilt. And with my empowerment coaching training, I knew that I had to feel this guilt, and it was very difficult. And I also innately knew that I could connect with him in spirit. So I applied one of my coaching techniques, and then I went into meditation, and I connected with my father, and I had a profound healing. I apologized to him, and then he apologized to me, and then that opened up. That started the forgiveness process. And then a few months later, then I started to connect with him more I was more open, and I started to connect with him more regularly, and through meditation, and the relationship was able to evolve into love, encouragement, support, all that I wanted when he was alive. And I am truly grateful for the relationship that I have with him now, because it's way better than when he was alive. So this is what I specialize in: reconciliation and forgiveness between loved ones on earth. and their family members in spirit.
And so, so you talked about the experience that you actually had personally. So, so is the experience that you have the same or similar for other people? Like, how does that work for, is it different from one person to the next?
No, it's similar, because with mediumship, the experiences that I had, I've attracted those similar types of people that are hanging on to some kind of pain, what I call pain story, with their loved one in spirit. And also too, even in my other work that I've done, empowerment coaching, ancestral healing, I attracted the same types of women that I've worked with that have had similar experiences. So I'm not only bringing in my experience, my education, but I'm bringing in like experience as well, and because I can empathize.
Yeah. So hi, I just wanted to acknowledge Danielle has come on. So if anybody actually hops on, or if you're on the replay, then we would love to be able to have some discussion. So if you have any questions, or if you guys come on the replay, then hashtag replay. And Andrea is also tagged into the conversation. So she will be able to actually come back and answer any questions as well. So my other question was, so do you only work with women? Because you said the women that you attract. So is it women only that you work with?
Yes. Since I launched my business 4 years ago, that has been my target audience. Why did I choose women? Because I felt that, because I'm a woman, and I've noticed that women sacrifice their needs, wants, and desires, and put everyone first. And I said, no. And we're creative and intuitive beings. And I noticed through my studies and empowerment coaching that when we give to everyone else, we disconnect from that intuitive part of ourselves. And for me, I wanted to empower women and remind them that they're worthy of an amazing life, an amazing relationship, of prosperity, of health. And they don't have to feel guilty for making themselves a priority, that they can do what's right for them and not sacrifice their needs, wants, and desires.
Yeah, and that's great. And we see so much, like I focus mainly on women, and so that is my focus as well. However, if men come into the picture, then I still work with the men just because I have the experience with that. But typically who I attract in terms of helping is the women. And so so I often, when I have a program that is okay for men to join as well, I often have to stop and think, oh yeah, I have to stop saying women, right? So, and so that's just really interesting. That I love the perspective that you have, because that's one of the things that I've noticed with a lot of women is that they don't put themselves first. And that is just, that is often the case in most cases. So say, for example, so going back to what it is that you're doing with this the spiritual mediumship is, so say, for example, I have, I was going to say a dad, but but my dad is living, but like, so a dad or an uncle or an aunt or somebody that has passed, then are you able to actually reach that particular person all the time? Like, how does that work? So like if it was my grandmother, for example, or if it was my aunt, or if it was whoever it is that I wanted to be able to address, like, do they always come forward?
Yes. I'm saying that because I've developed the relationship with my own father. I actually have a meditation, or I sit in meditation, or even if I don't sit in meditation, if I just say his name, I ask a question and I'm, completely open, I will hear him. But normally I do set a certain, maybe not the exact time, but I set time aside and I will sit for about 10 minutes and connect with him. And this is what, I've conveyed to the women that I've worked with, that we have to be open, that they have to be open to receive them. So it's one thing to sit in meditation, but if they're like, oh, come to me, come to me, come to me, in desperate energy, no, you're not going to be able to receive your loved one in spirit. Or if they're still hanging on to resentment or hurt or guilt or anything, it's hard to connect with your loved one in spirit. So for me, even though I will connect my client with their loved one in spirit, and they'll receive some sort of healing and a burden lifted and relief, they still need forgiveness. Is actually not a one-time deal. It's a bit of a process. And so for me, once, I tell the client, once there's no more emotional charge towards your loved one in purpose, then you, in spirit, you can open yourself up to receive them, and then sit in meditation, breathe, take a couple breaths to get out of your head, and then simply say their name, pour your heart out, ask questions, and then feel and listen. And this is the part where some people have a hard time, like, being still and listening. They want answers now, but if you just sit still and really let go out of that ego mind, then you can connect with them. And this is actually a bit of a process, and it takes a bit of a commitment. So it's not like just once in a while. I've developed the relationship with my dad, like, frequently, like almost every night. And then, like I said, in between in the day, if I say his name, I will hear him. He will respond. But that has taken like a few years of letting go of not only stuff with him, but just any day-to-day fears and anger.
So if I was coming to work with you, then, and so would you be able to connect with my loved one, like whichever loved one it is? Like, so if it was somebody specific that I wanted to address, or that I wanted to be able to connect with, like, are you able to? Because you said it takes a little bit of time to be able to build that relationship with, so for you to be able to connect with your dad, for example, or so if it was, both my parents are living, so I can't use my parents, but like, so my grandmother. So if I wanted, right? Yeah. So if I wanted to be able to connect with my grandmother, if I don't have those skills or that connection, do you do that connection with them? Like, how does that work?
Yes, definitely. When women come into the mediumship sessions, you could come to me and say, okay, I want to connect with my grandmother. And I will say, okay, I will keep that in mind because I work for spirit. So someone more important may come forward instead of your grandmother. It may, say, for example, be your grandfather, and he may come forward, and this is who I will transmit a message and connect with. And if I'm able to receive your grandmother, then she will come through. If not, then I can give you like steps on how to connect with her if your grandfather hasn't given you the type of information or the type of healing that you needed.
Okay. So do people come to you only if they have a problem that they want to be able to work through with a particular spirit, or do they come to you for different reasons, like for other reasons?
The core of my work has always been around forgiveness. So the people that I attract will come for healing with a loved one in spirit, but also I incorporate my empowerment coaching because most likely they have unhealthy relationships or unresolved issues elsewhere in their current life, with maybe a family member or an ex-husband or something like that. I will be able to find some sort of other areas where they may need healing as well, and also provide them with practical tools on how to live day-to-day life in less fear and in a more empowered state.
Okay. So, so how do people work with you? So like, how does that work? And I'm having a little bit more challenge. I'm trying to be a little bit more, why don't I just go back to, because I was trying to figure out a good way of being able to ask the question.
Yes.
But I already know the answer, because one of the things and so how would I just go into my own story? So that might be helpful for people that are actually listening. So I've worked with Andrea personally. And so when I approached Andrea initially, it was, I want to be able to deal with this situation that's going on here currently, in, like Andrea said, like you may be having a current issue with a relationship and that kind of thing. So I had a relationship that has been strained for a good several years. And so when I actually met with Andrea, we actually talked about, and I really honestly didn't know what was going to come forward or because I'm talking about a living person, but I knew that Andrea did spiritual mediumship. And so I had no expectations as to who or what or why, other than this is an issue around forgiveness that I want to be able to deal with, and I want to be able to let it go, and I want to be able to release it. And so when I contacted Andrea, I wasn't sure if that would actually fit, not fit, how would that go? And so, because I didn't have anybody dead that I wanted to talk to, so there was no spirit that I necessarily wanted to speak to. And one of the things that was really cool is that in this process is that my great grandfather actually came forward. And so that was so is that kind of generally how it works for most people, Andrea?
Yes, the women that I've worked with, because are completely open. They might have somebody, you didn't have someone in mind, but I remember one woman in particular, she was open, and then later when two of her loved ones in spirit came through, she says, I had prayed about that the night before, that they would come through, but I never knew anything before. And
Okay.
the first thing that I tell my clients is just be open. But normally the women that come through they know that they need some kind of healing, and but they either have someone in mind and they don't say it, or actually they haven't said it. Like, nobody has really come to me and said anything. They're just open. And then I usually put them at ease and, like, ask questions, what's going on in their life.
Yeah.
And then I'll see who has come through and convey that message. So it's really a combination, as from the experience with you, it's really a combination of all these things, all these modalities that come through that provide healing and steps forward.
So one of the biggest things is being open. So just having that openness to receive is one of the biggest, is the most important part of, but I think that probably comes with spirituality, right? So like, if you're not open, and so like I've had a session with a different medium years ago, and but I was very specific as to who is it that I was actually calling for, and both of those people came forward. But it was like, when I met with you, for example, it was specifically about somebody who was living, how do I actually work through this particular, because I had worked and I tried different things. And so I wasn't expecting somebody to come through. It just happened, right? So it just happened to have, I just happened to have somebody come forward and share that information. And so, hi, Emily. And so, go ahead.
Oh, the point that I wanted to make is, sometimes if you have someone specific, it can block the energy.
Okay.
So it's good that years ago that the people that you wanted to connect with came through. But from when I was learning in my training, it's good to mention that, okay, you came to me and said, okay, I want to meet with someone. It's good to mention that, but then also let it go, because someone more important may want to come through. So if you're focusing, like hanging on, okay, I have to speak to my great grandmother, then it would it might prevent me from connecting with someone. And actually that actually happened to someone, actually happened in my practical training. I was trying to connect with someone, and one of the person, it was actually a guy, I could feel, since I'm an empath, I could feel that there was some kind of blocking, like there was a wall up, and I was having a hard time. Like spirit was coming through, but I couldn't get the full thing, and I couldn't proceed because he couldn't validate who the spirit was. And then later, when I was taking notes for my class, for my homework to submit in my homework, he said, yeah, I was feeling a little bit closed off. And I said, yes, I could feel it. And I had gone up all in my head. So, and then that prevented the spirit from fully coming through.
So when that happens, are you able to let the client know? Like, how would that happen? So say, for example, I came and I was like, definitely, I only want to be able to speak to John, Joe, or whatever, and like, this is who it is that I'm coming, and I don't want to be doing anything else. Are you able to pick that up and be like, now, because like you had shared that experience, but are you able to actually say, like, you know what, Rollie, this is like, it's blocking, so like, can we look at
I will, because I want to be honest, and I just want to be honest, like, but I tell this like up front. Like if you came to me and said, okay, I want to meet with my great grandmother, I would say, okay, yes, I will keep that in mind. However, I work for spirit, and if your great grandfather wants to come through, or somebody else wants to come through, I have to let them through. So please stay open to whoever wants to come through. And if at the end that your great grandmother hasn't come through, I can try to call her, but I cannot guarantee that she will come through. So I will be upfront for sure.
So, hi, Judy. So there's a couple of people that are actually on live right now.
That's great.
Do you guys have any questions? Like, Andrea can't see the questions, but I can. So I've seen a couple of comments from a couple of hello comments from Danielle and from Judy. But
hello.
Do any of you guys have any questions as we continue the conversation? Is there something that you guys want to know or would like to be able to ask Andrea? I'd love to be able to share those questions with her if you guys have any. So so how long does a session take? So like, if you're actually going to like, typically, obviously it changes from one to the next, but like, how do you know how the session, like when the session starts, ends, that kind of thing? So
yeah, my sessions are for an hour, because when I'm in my mediumship power, I can hold it for like an hour, maximum an hour and a half.
Okay.
So the difference between being in the psychic power and the medium power is that I have to raise my vibration, and spirit needs to lower their vibration to meet me. And that takes a lot of concentration to connect and blend with the spirit is what I'm doing.
Okay. So like, you watch things, people that are mediums on TV where spirit actually comes in and speaks through you. Like, is that something that happens, or like for real happens, or is that like kind of TV hoax? Like, is it just messages that come through, or you've never had anybody actually speak through you?
That's actually called trans mediumship. So okay. I'm not a trans medium. I blend with the spirit, like I embody them, their personality, but I don't become them.
Okay. Okay. So is there anything else that that you think that we haven't touched on, or that we that you wanted to make sure that that the audience knew about?
The main thing that I wanted was to say that forgiveness is important, and that it's not a one-time deal. It's a process. And why I'm emphasizing this is because the women that I've worked with have said, I know you're smiling, and myself included, before I this was like my specialty, was like, I already forgave them.
Yeah.
And that is very much true. However, we cannot process all of our anger, our fear, our shame, or our guilt all at once. It's a process. And I've noticed that when we're being called to become a higher version of ourselves, then that's when those pain stories are going to come in our face. And it's not easy to face them again, especially when we were like, oh, I've already looked at that. But no, it's to come, it's to face it again, so that we can heal and move forward. And usually we gain a new perspective and more self-love for us, more self-compassion, and then we can bring that outward and then move forward.
And
yeah, go ahead.
No, that's okay.
Oh, the last point was that we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and the spirit world, especially our loved ones in spirit, regardless of the relationship that we had with them, they are always there, willing to help us. We just need to be open to receive them. I feel that our whole point and our whole purpose in life is to remember that we're beings of light and love, and we have these lessons on earth to learn, but our loved ones in spirit are there to help us. They can see things from a higher perspective. They're not going to tell us how to live our lives. It's all about empowerment, but they can give us guidance, love, and support. And it's just for us to be open to receive that. And it actually makes life easier, more joy-filled, more effortless, and almost magical.
And it does. And one of the things, and the reason why I was smiling, well, for twofold, is one is that I need to be reminded of that sometimes personally. But even though that's something that I talk about with my clients all the time. So I'll have clients that'll come up and say, you know what, this is something that I've been dealing with. I've had this trauma. I've already gone through therapy. I've already done all these things. I've worked on it through spiritual, whether it's spiritual or psychotherapy. And one of the things that I always remind clients, or that I use, the analogy that I use with clients, is that it's like peeling an onion. Right? So you take one layer off, you take the next layer off, you take the next layer off. And so when you peel the one layer off, you've got that little tiny skin between the layers. And that little tiny skin is, if you actually peel the layer off and you actually leave it sit, it actually forms another skin. Right? So if you peel it off, and that's why I like the analogy of the onion, is that because when you peel it off, it allows you to be able to harden again and get strong and be able to be tough. And then you peel off the next layer when it's time, when you're ready to use it. And so sounds like it's the same thing around that, being able to connect spiritually with those that you've loved, or that forgiveness. And I love the fact that you can actually connect with somebody who you've got that pain with, that you can actually, because a lot of times a trigger for a lot of the clients that I have is that somebody will have passed away, and it brings back a lot of those emotions. It brings back a lot of that pain. And so we do letter writing is one of the techniques that I actually use, but being able to connect and getting those messages and being able to have that reassurance I think is really helpful. And so I'm grateful for people like you that allows us to be able to have that connection with spirit that we can't actually connect, or I shouldn't say we can't. And I probably could if I practice and got really good at it, but I'm not really patient, and waiting 2 or 3 years for me to be able to get the answers that I'm looking for would probably drive me insane. So not that I look for quick fixes, because I know that there's no quick fixes, that it takes some time to be able to still work on things, but just sitting quietly for 30 minutes a day or whatever, and I do, and I meditate.
All you need is 10 minutes. All you need is 10 minutes, and to silence the mind, to drop out of the ego mind, because it's like everybody's capable of it. Is basically what my other message is, that yes, I don't have I'm not special. Like, we're all capable of accessing this, and for me, it all came organically. I just opened up to it. It's a process. Yeah.
Well, and like I said, for people like me that don't have a whole lot of patience, I'm going to go to Andrea.
That is wonderful. Yes. Yeah,
I'm going to go to Andrea to be able to help me with those, because I connect, and I do connect with my own spirit, and I do connect with my own inner self. But it's I've had to learn creative ways of being able to do that, because just sitting quiet and silent, my ADHD brain just doesn't do that so well.
It's not your thing.
So it just doesn't do that so well. And I need that stimuli. I need that stimulation. I can meditate now, whereas before I wasn't able to. I could actually sit quietly and meditate, but I know that there's so many different ways of being able to do that. So, so it's good to know that I can eventually, maybe some point, but it's not on my priority goal list to be able to do it. I'm going to receive it instead. So one of the things that I did wanted to acknowledge today, and I put it in the links in the comment, is that today is, and it's just very interesting that I've got Andrea today of all days, is that today is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Remembrance Day. And so before starting, so at 7 p.m. on each time zone, is that people are lighting candles, and at 8 o'clock, they're lighting them for an hour, and at 8 o'clock, the candles are going out for the next time zone to be able to pick it up. And it is, and it's called a wave of lights. And so through the time zones across the world, the lights are going on and off in support of women who have lost, I should say families, but more particularly women who've actually been pregnant and have lost their child. And so it's just, and I just wanted to be able to acknowledge that. And like I said, the irony, like the universe has its own patterns, right? So I didn't look it up. I didn't see that this is what was going on. I actually saw this post from my niece who has recently lost a child. And so, and that's just, and that was when I saw it, and I'm like, wow, how is that for irony that today of all days, we bring in Andrea, a spiritual medium, who during this time frame. So for those of you who are suffering loss, that are, whether it is somebody new, somebody younger, it's just, I just wanted to be able to acknowledge that for those of you who are dealing with that loss. It has been more than 25 years since I've lost my own first pregnancy years and years ago. And so, and I know that there are times when that is still challenging and still difficult. And so I just wanted to be able to acknowledge all of you who have lost an infant, either more recently, years ago. It is still a loss. It is still something that we still hold dear, because it is still somebody that we've cherished and that we've loved. So I just wanted to, and like I said, I just wanted to acknowledge that the irony, especially the irony of the fact that today of all days, Andrea is our guest. So, so Andrea, how can people get a hold of you? So,
yeah, people can find me on social media, specifically on my Facebook page or Instagram. They can also sign up on my website, andreamlewis.com, and get a free forgiveness meditation to help cut the binds with someone that they need to forgive. And that was actually a meditation that I created shortly after my father passed away, passed in spirit. It was a channeled meditation of forgiveness, and I've received a lot of feedback from clients or people who've signed up for my newsletter and said how powerful and helpful and healing it was for them.
Okay. And you said it was Andrea M. Lewis?
Yep.
.com?
Yes.
Okay. So I've just put it in the comments so that if anybody is, and your social media link, so the Facebook link is actually in the comments. And so, and then I can't pull up easily the Instagram link, but maybe one of the things that we can do is actually put that in the comments as well. And
yeah,
just to make things easier, because I know that if somebody's watching this and they really want to be able to connect with you, I want to make sure that they actually have those comments and or those contacts, and especially when we're dealing with loss, and that is that's a challenge. So we're dealing with loss, and then we're dealing with those anger, resentment, frustration, and needing to do all that forgiveness work. Is that this is perfect, right? So this allows people to be able to work through that grief and work through those emotions. That is a really tough emotion. So
yeah, I know that our time is up, but I remember from my own personal experience that it was just it practically immobilized me. If I didn't have my empowerment coaching techniques, which was like writing letters and then connecting with him in spirit, I wouldn't have been very good to help with the funeral arrangements or to function. Yeah. And after that I did love and nurture myself. And I know that most people, when during the loss of someone, they go on doing and going mode. They don't take time to feel. And I made sure that I took time to feel and rest and nurture myself. Yeah. While I was, doing the funeral arrangements as well. So it's a process in which we need to be more loving and gentle with ourselves.
It is, and that is one of the things that that is really important for us to be able to do, is that nurturing. And so nurturing ourselves and taking care of ourselves is something I'm huge on. Self-care. I'm huge on those. So I do my 21-day self-care challenge on a regular basis. I do the 30-day self-care challenge. And I know that a colleague often says, self-care is supposed to be an everyday thing, but we forget as nurturers, we forget that we're supposed to be taking care of ourselves. So we get busy with all the things that are going on, and then add grief on top of that. And that makes it even that much more of a challenge for us to be able to work through. So, so those are those are really, really important points for us to be able to make. And so one of the things in terms of timing is that we're leading into, for those of us, especially up north, is that we're leading into those colder, darker days, and the days get shorter and the days get longer. And then we start moving into the holidays. So we start getting that darkness that starts to come over us. And as a mental health professional, one of the things that I know happens is that as we move closer and closer and closer to the holidays, this is a time when more people are struggling with grief over, even though whether they've passed away during this time frame or they've passed away at any other point. At this point, my mental health experience is that people have come to me during this time of dealing with the grief and dealing with the sadness as we get into those darker days. And so which is one of the other reasons why I want to make sure that I have all of your contact information, so that if somebody is struggling with this, that they can reach out, that they have somebody with that experience that can actually help them work through some of these struggles.
Yeah, that would be great. And like, yeah, I will like pop in and comment, and maybe I'll add my Instagram link. And yeah, I understand like these times of darker days, people get triggered, and they, it's important to find support and healing and empathy
Yeah,
and
so
guidance, any type of guidance, and
yeah, definitely. And so like I said, like I really, just because of timing and all the way that things happen, and as we get into those darker days, like right now, for example, it's around 7:30, roughly about 20 after 7. It actually right now is completely pitch black in my backyard. So it's dark, and it starts to get long. Our days are going to start to get shorter and shorter. And right now we are still on daylight standard time, but I think it's like within a couple of weeks we actually switch back to standard time.
oh my goodness, I forgot.
Yeah, I think it's November 5th or in and around that time.
Yes, you are right. I completely forgot about that.
Well, and coming from mental health, right? So like that is like, these are the cycles for me, is coming from a mental health background and working with clients over the years, is that those are some of the patterns, is that it's starting to get dark, it's starting to get cold. And so when we get into January, February, that is the worst time for people who are suffering from any kind of
Depression.
any kind of depressive moods. So like sad really, really kicks in during that time. And so like, it's just, so I actually watch those in terms of patterns, because that's when I would actually get busier. So I would get busier when it would start to get darker and darker and darker. And then it would get, and then the Christmas time, during Christmas holidays, then that would actually be even that much more challenging. And then after the holidays, once they actually got over the hump of the holidays, because people tend to hold things together a little better during the holidays, unless they're alone. And then once they get over that hump, and then we would get busier, really, really busy again. So like, it's those cycles, like it's very cyclical for us in our northern region. I'm going to assume it probably is same kind of thing in a lot of other regions as well, but like that's, so yeah, I pay attention to the Eastern Standard Time when it actually gets switched over back to standard. And then it's like, woohoo, daylight savings again. People are like coming into the light. So
yes.
So yeah, definitely. Those are some of the things that I definitely watched for. So yes. So is there anything else, Andrea, that you want to make sure that if we haven't touched on anything, I just want to make sure that we have that last opportunity.
No, this was like, I had fun. This was good. Thank you so much for having me on here. The conversation evolved like completely organically, and it was good. Like it was good. I look forward to any of the comments like in the next few days or so. And
great. Well, and and like I said, like before we actually hopped on the call, I don't actually write out all the questions. And I know some people do when they interview. And so I just find that it's a lot easier and better, which is why I was trying to, because I've had that experience with you, it was like, well, how do I wrap that into a question? Forget it. Like, let's forget the question. Let's just go into scenario. Here's my scenario. This is what it is that happened. Is that normal? Right. So that organic conversation, like as you guys all know from the beginning of my prompts, when I actually try and follow the standard of what it is, I can barely even remember what it is that I do, and I do what it is that I do. But when I have to do the scripted part, it's like, oh, what am I supposed to say again? I don't remember what I was supposed to say. So so that's always a challenge for me.
But that's what makes it fun though, and it's how you grow. And it's like, you know what, you're just being yourself.
It is. It's just embarrassing sometimes. It's like, what is it that I do? Like, I don't even remember what I do. What's my job again? So yeah, it's just a little challenging sometimes. So, but I will see you guys next week. I believe next week, if I'm not mistaken, and I should have looked ahead, but I believe Marnie is actually on with me next week, who is going to talk about dealing with behavioral challenges with your children. So I am looking for, and I'm pretty sure that's what Marnie's doing next week. And so I will talk to you all soon, and bye for now.